So.
Entrepreneur as I work as a strategist with education technology startups, and I will introduce my colleagues, my co-founders, Amy and David. They'll say a few words, and then we'll get started with those speakers.
Hi everyone, my name is Amy Keith. I work with a company called Versari Partners that is very much focused on learning technologies and helping them to scale effectively. Kind of met these two at a startup weekend education. We saw a need for this, and it basically snowballed into a great community of people that are very active and very enthusiastic about this. So we're looking forward to many future events. And David Pollard here is going to introduce himself and carry on.
Yeah, so it's great to see everyone here. Lots of old faces, new faces, a lot of educators as well, which I'm really excited about because my background is in education. Very short background, only about 2 years in further education, but it's really, really exciting to see so many people coming out and supporting us, and I'm really excited to see what comes of it as well.
So in terms of what we're doing in STEM education, the reason Roche is here from Trinity is because that's our flagship partnership that was established in 2013, and Joe is going to talk a bit more about that program and the focus on teachers through that. So I'll hand over to him shortly, but just to start, why are we involved in education in Ireland? Why do we care about it? First and foremost, innovation and learning are our DNA here in Google, and so it's something that we really care about, and obviously we've got such a strong presence here in Dublin. It's brilliant to have you here tonight and show off the brilliant sights of Dublin from our great office, but it's something that we really care about globally, and then at a local level in every country that we're working in, especially in Ireland. So, and we know that there are critical issues that we want to try and help address if we can, or think about what our role should be in addressing those, whether it's the jobs gap, the skills gap, and thinking about kind of future-proofing the education system and looking at what's really needed in terms of our graduates and earlier on back in the pipeline, if you like, in terms of where the future employees are coming from. But it's not even just about that. It's about thinking about the kinds of skills that every young person is going to need, regardless of whether they come to Google or the tech sector or not. We know that technology is now kind of infiltrating every sector, and so it's critical that students have lots of opportunities while they're still young to engage and be exposed to these skills and to digital skills and computer science in particular. So our focus in Ireland, we know that there's this growing interest around technology globally. We're very focused on computer science in particular because that's where we feel the greatest need is, and there's a lot of work to be done in that area. So that's where we try and channel our energies and focus on that particular area within the STEM umbrella. So in Ireland we really have two avenues that we work in. One is focusing on students and increasing exposure for students on many different levels. The second area then is building teacher capacity around STEM skills and computer science skills in particular, and by doing so hopefully contributing to the system in some way and helping to grow it. So I just want to talk you through a couple of the initiatives that we have under both the student pillar and the teachers. Some of them may be of relevance to what you're doing or the work that you're doing. There hopefully might be something that might spark an idea for you. And then I'm going to hand over to Joe to talk about the Trinity project in a bit more detail. So looking at the students, I guess we have a number of different ways that we approach this. So we have grant programs that are open to, for example, the RISE Awards are currently open for applications closing next week, I believe on the 19th of February. the current round, and this is for a non-profit institution or a university or third level institution. And then we also have, we care a lot about diversity all across the business at various different levels, but particularly in this area of education. So really trying to develop programs that will encourage more girls to get involved in STEM, and a great example of that is our Made with Code program. And then I'm sure a lot of you are very familiar with the Google Science Fair. We had our 3 girls from Kinsale winning it a couple of years ago. So that's just a flavour of kind of what's going on in terms of students. And I guess my job as education programme manager for Ireland is really to look at what's Google doing globally, what's needed on the ground in Ireland, and try and marry the two as best I can, and put together offerings for, you know, that I feel are working for the sector as it is at the moment, and then, you know, adapting as we go along.
Thanks, Claire. So I'll just outline a little bit about the programme. Maybe not go through it in detail because I realise maybe not everyone is that interested in it, but I'll be here all night if you have questions. I won't be here all night. I'll be here for a while to answer questions. So this is an example of what a partnership with Google could look like. And to be honest, if Google can work with Trinity College, they can work with anyone, because we're not so easy to work with sometimes. We're fine, just we can be a complex partner. But this is something that we're very proud of, because for a while we've been trying to find a way to offer something in the area of technology that teachers would be interested in doing, and we realised that maybe as the third level place of education, we really needed to have something that was accredited. So this is actually a postgraduate certificate in 21st century teaching and learning. So it's a level 9 course open to any teachers that are interested in exploring how technology might be used in the classroom. And I think one of the biggest issues we've had is that sometimes with these type of courses, people might think we need to get to a level of expertise where we are the master, and that any student that comes into our classroom will be better at technology than they will, which I think is where we need to stop and pause, because the way technology is moving, we're probably never going to match some of our students in certain areas of technology. I know there is this feeling that sometimes we give young people more credit in technology. There's certain things they're very good at, but certain other things that we think they're good at that they might not be good at. But in general, we have to find a model that suits students being experts in certain areas. So that's how we would teach all these modules we have on this course. So if you were to do this postgraduate certificate, you would do 6 modules over a year. It's a part-time course, 6 modules, and each of the modules would have some relevance to either computer science or STEM, or possibly some other area of inclusive education. And really what we're trying to do is show the teachers that come in, they work with the scientists and the computer scientists and the education researchers in Trinity, and we try and come up with ways that you can bring technology into the classroom, you can facilitate the learning, but you don't have to get to the level of expertise that we all wish we could get to, but probably will never get to. So that's the 4 key areas behind our certificate, and you can see they kind of line up with what Claire was talking about.
Co-hosted some events here. It's been, you know, very much kind of joint learnings as we're going along. There's a huge research piece to what the folks are doing as well, which Joe hasn't mentioned, but you know, there's already been some great research output from the programme, and I know there's more to come.
I suppose just to give a bit of background from the perspective that I'm coming from, and my background broadly is in behavioural psychology, and more specifically in working with teachers in classrooms on strategies to engage what would be considered difficult students or hard to reach students successfully in their learning, and on the other side of that also with the students themselves and how they can engage effectively in their learning. So often what that resulted in was very creative solutions. So depending on the interest of the students, on the skills of the teacher, on the resources in the school, on the leadership, it could vary from anything from art projects to electronics to building remote control cars, and even on occasion kind of merging all of those. At one stage we were on the ground in a block of flats in Dublin actually painting out a Formula 1 racetrack to race the remote control cars on. which led to numeracy learning when they started to gamble on the result. But the really the point there is that I suppose what we learned out of it was that learning didn't take place in linear, neat classroom situations. It often took place in messy, dynamic situations as well. It also taught us that we were very clear about what we wanted the education experiences to create was when we started out. So we were very clear on the outcomes and the objectives, and knew that we had to be flexible and adaptable in the process as well. So just for the purpose of tonight, I think just a few assumptions as well, because really what I'd like to explore a little bit is the implication of new approaches to a design for learning that really are emerging from the dynamic relationship between education and technology. And that's really acknowledging that pedagogy should lead technology, of course. You know, we want to merge good practice into how we use technology, but ultimately it's going to change how that actually works. And that's what attracted me really to online learning and blended learning solutions as well, was that ability to provide a flexible, personalised, adaptable approach. So I was involved in the setup and development of iScoil. It's an online learning community for young early school leavers. We started out in about 2007, so we're going for a while now. What we were very clear on at the start was a kind of safe, supportive educational environment we wanted to create. So if you look at any kind of recommendations for success factors for engaging difficult students, this is what you'll find. Some of these you'll also find in the potential of online learning. So there's very much we could see that they were going to merge. And I think that the one thing that I'll probably talk a little bit more is about the instructional teams and the teaching roles. Because while we used these effective strategies, what happened was our practice started to change. Kind of new things started to emerge. So our tutors and our mentors were talking about how they use data to kind of feed back in the student interaction with the content, how they adapt their approach based on that. We started to use multiple modes of assessment, where it didn't just have to be about quizzes, online text, anything like that. It was also about a student could show they had learning outcomes through making a video, recording themselves, collaborative approaches. We also started to blend non-formal and formal learning. So we have two types of learning. You can learn at home, if that suits you, but maybe your home circumstances aren't the best. Maybe they're a bit chaotic, maybe they're a bit, just not very supportive. So we've partnered with youth centres and other agencies around the country. So that was fine to host the place, to provide the equipment, to provide the broadband. But what it's also done is allow the assessment process to blend in with the project activities that are going on in the centre. So that could be horse care, anything like that, but allows us to evidence that students are taking part maybe in a team activity. They create literacy and numeracy projects out of that based on their interests as well. So all of these new practices started to emerge, and what the clear message out of this was really the changing role of the teacher. And I think this has huge implications now, especially coming out of the new digital strategy for school. And it needs to be clearly defined, I think. It's not just about professional development often, but it's often too about professional identity. So we're asking teachers now a lot of the time, and a lot of our mentors and tutors are or have been classroom teachers as well at some stage. And they've said sometimes they feel a little bit paintball by what's coming at them from educational technology and apps. So are they a mentor, are they a tutor, are they a learning designer, a facilitator, an app developer, a teacher, are they all of them? What is it that we're actually asking them to do? And what kind of learning environment are we asking them to create? And I think this is a challenge for policy as well, to provide clear frameworks for that. And while it's happening, and we have things like the UNESCO framework for teacher competencies, Bloom's digital taxonomy, they provide frameworks at a level, to bring that down to the implementation and the practical strategies of that, I think is now becoming a little bit of a challenge.
The system experiences at second level, where there is a time-constrained written exam, terminal exam, which parents are concerned with from the minute they walk through the door at 12 years of age. It is 40-minute slots. It is antiquated. But where is the Department of Education in supporting this?
Where are they currently? Or?
Well, I think that's the challenge that needs to be presented to them, that they have expectations, they have a vision of how they'd like technology to be integrated into practice, but they need to clear the space for that to happen, and for it to happen effectively as well. And I agree completely, like we use QQI level 3 accreditation, so we're lucky that we can have portfolio assessment and ongoing assessment as well. I think real change can't happen unless that assessment, that terminal assessment and terminal exam changes as well, because you can be as creative and lovely and engaging and fun as a teacher in the classroom, but when your student wants to get points when they're 18, all of that goes out the door a little bit. So I think the real challenge to the department as well and to policymakers is you need to clear the space for us to be able to do this.
I was wondering, is it 100% taught online, or is any of it real world actually learning with the students?
It's online. The content is delivered online. The mentoring and tutoring is delivered online. Some of it is synchronous, so it's real time, but that could be, okay, we have a range of different needs in our program because early leaving is a very complex issue. So we could have a young girl with an emotional and social anxiety who's learning at home, who may not be just at this moment in time able to interact directly, but benefits from the education part of it. But we also have blended centres where early leavers get the learning, the accreditation bit online, but get the direct support from support workers in the centre as well. That's more around personal development, confidence building and progression and career plans.
My name is Sean Gallagher. I work with the Professional Development Service for Teachers. I'm a teacher for the past 25 years, working as a classroom teacher, principal teacher, and now in professional development. So first of all, I suppose I want to address a lot of the concerns that have come up and were very clearly made over here, but also maybe give an insight into the role that we play in the area of professional development, especially in the use of ICT for teaching, learning and assessment. I'm just going to draw on the now infamous OECD report that I suppose maybe a combination of lazy journalism and sensationalism I think demeaned a lot of the good work that's taking place embedding ICT. Are we being challenged to adopt or adapt the way we teach using the technologies that are now available? This is, I suppose, another one that stood out for me, that if in the course of project development by students, if they're using smartphones to just copy and paste and represent information as their own, well, that's not particularly smart. But our expectations as teachers should be far higher than that. This is probably the most important one that I did extract from the report, that technology can amplify great teaching, but there's no end of technology can replace poor teaching. So the art of teaching has to remain at the core. English, science, every subject. The role of the learner's experience is important when we're dealing with adult learners as well. That we have to appreciate that we as teachers, we're all drawing on the experiences of the classroom, and our experiences shape how the teaching is going to go. We have moved from eras of information scarcity to an era of information abundance. I grew up in rural Mayo. We had access to World Book. One of my colleagues was able to write longer projects because they had Encyclopedia Britannica. It was slightly more long-winded, okay? But they were our sources of information. Now what type of information do we have at our fingertips? Well, we have online dictionaries. So English teachers or students who are struggling maybe with the decoding of words can activate inbuilt dictionaries. We have the Irish, any Irish teachers here? Okay, there's a very good online dictionary that will translate, but it also gives you the sound file, and it gives you the sound file in the three main dialects, Connacht, Moon, agus Ulla. So if any of you have, any students have a Donegal teacher, for me I found that difficult because their Irish sounds a lot different. Online graphical dictionaries, so visuwords.com is a nice, so again, just for word associations, that's a fantastic little site. These are all different sources of information. Authenticating information. I would see that students, there's an awful lot of students, the temptation is that just because it's done in a poster, oh, it must be authentic, it's fine, okay? So what do we teach students and what do we impress on teachers maybe to be the skills? Well, maybe start with a trusted source for the information first. Don't let the students loose on just Google, okay? It's fine, but after their skill set has been built up. Reference the source. Get used to citing your information from the very beginning and start with one source initially. Our other site is scoilnet.ie, okay? And through scoilnet.ie, every Irish child, parent, teacher has free access to Britannica School through the Irish IP range. So that's paid for. So if a student has connectivity at home, through Scoilnet they can get to Britannica School and then they can research any project at all. We had a successful Safer Internet Day on Monday, where we launched a resource to deal with the difficult topic of sexting in secondary schools. So that's webwise.ie. Notice I'm giving plugs for all of our services here. And they're all free, and free means zero, no charge. You don't get coffee, okay. When you go into Britannica School as a teacher, you can now access information at 3 levels. So it's foundation, intermediate or advanced. Foundation is typically primary teachers, maybe upper primary, lower secondary, and then upper secondary. Okay, volcanoes. So now we have it at level 1. And we look up volcano geology, right? This gives the basic information here. But look, I can, if that is too basic for my class, I just subtly bump them up to reading level 2. Then, again, it might bump them up to reading level 3. So it's largely the same information, but I can differentiate my content. Other things is that I can cite my source here. So in my instructions, I'd say if you want to use part of that for your project, you cite your source, and this is how you do it. You can listen to it. So for any, you have students who are very good at appreciating concepts, but not very good at decoding print. Well, then you get them to listen to it. Bring in their headphones. Search engines for students. These are just 2. DuckDuckGo is 1. And the only reason that DuckDuckGo is quite good is that it does not remember previous searches. So your students, if they conduct a search on DuckDuckGo, all of them will get the same results because it doesn't second guess you. The other one is Instagrok. I won't give you an example, but Instagrok does not return the search as lists, but rather as mind maps of keywords. And you can adjust a slider. So if you want to take a look, I would recommend taking a look at Instagrok. Okay, Lawrence, I see you shaking your head. You've seen it before, have you?
I was on the website actually when you mentioned it.
Okay, okay. Right. Of course, there are skills. Now, remember, we've moved from Britannica, one source, to alternative sources, and now you can they've built up the skills of skimming, scanning, determining importance, and now Google is ready, or they are ready for Google. And then there are, of course, a number of operators that make their searching more meaningful. So things like define, where they can activate the inbuilt dictionary, perform the calculator, unit converters, they're all within the search box now. First of all, World Wonders. I just give you an idea as to what World Wonders is. It gives you virtual tours of pretty much anywhere in the world. Okay, the one that I like showing, and my team show it, is Scott's Hut. So what was the name of the explorer who died recently? He was trying to cross the Antarctic. Anyone know? No one can't remember his name now? Okay. He was trying to go across the Antarctic. And I was in a school the following day, the teacher was explaining, and they brought them to Scott's Hut to show them how difficult the terrain was. So what does Scott's Hut look like? Well, that's what it looks like. What does it look like? I can do a full 360 all the way around to show how hostile it is. I'm an English teacher. Your essay for today is to visit, you are Scott, you're crossing the Antarctic. Now, in your supply shed, what was there? What was your food? Well, it was tins on the shelf, so maybe I had to eat tin food all the time. What type of skis did you have? What did you sleep in? What did you sit in? Was it comfortable? What were the clothes like? So, instead of viewing this as just for geography, it can be viewed as a stimulus for creative writing, or indeed for any multitude of subjects. That's World Wonders. We'll take a look at art project. Any art teachers here? Okay. Art project gives you virtual access to a high number of art galleries all around the world. So if we look for Van Gogh, I think he was, or Van Gogh, I think I should be saying now. Okay. So, and what you can do is you can take a look at any of the paintings in huge detail, right down to the technique and the brushstroke. I don't think you get that even to the naked eye in visiting the museum itself. Another thing you can do with that, if I can get back out of it, is, and I won't do it now, is I can drag two paintings side by side in the compare function. See it there? Compare. And I can apply the magnifier in the same way. Okay. The third part of Google Cultural Institute is historic moments. And historic moments, rather than presenting periods in history as narratives or someone else's narrative, you have access to primary source documents like photographs and newspapers. So what you do is, we say civil rights photography, well, that's just a collection of pictures from that time. And you then have very clear images. And again, students can derive their own understanding, construct their own knowledge, as opposed to just taking someone else's narrative. The whole Cultural Institute is supported by a guide for primary teachers and also for secondary teachers. I should have explained that our service supports both primary and post-primary teachers, right down to individual school level. What I do see happening, and addressing the whole thing about teacher professional development, was mentioned in the National Education Technology Plan in America recently. Now, I don't think we should be slavishly following America by any means, but there was a very interesting concept explained. We have spoken about a digital divide in Ireland between the haves and the have-nots, between those who have access to a device and broadband and those who don't. But the National Education Technology Plan also makes reference to a digital use divide, whereby in classrooms you have classrooms with no technology. You have classrooms with technology that is used for didactic teaching. In other words, you're still reading a book, but it happens to be on your device. And the third way then is where the technology is making new forms of teaching, new forms of learning, project-based learning, and expanding, as was so eloquently put, beyond the classroom walls. Google Trex is worth exploring as well.
I think there is a confusion out there. I think Even if I look at my role within Google Ireland, obviously there's Google Apps, there's a whole load of stuff. Sean touched on so many other projects that we're doing in education. I'm very much on the computer science end of things, teaching like it as a subject. I'm not saying that integration across subject areas is not important. It absolutely is, and we need to see teachers using it across the board. But there's also a place now in like 2016 Ireland for there being a standalone subject to give students a chance to go even deeper with learning and understanding how to use technology and understanding computer science while they're at school. I'm not saying in terms of whether it needs to be compulsory for everyone or not. I think that's still open for debate, but I do agree with you, and I think there's a lot of confusion out there in terms of what we mean when we say digital skills, computer science, computational thinking. There's all these terms going around, and it's creating a lot of confusion. So
I'm just sorry, can I just pick up on what you're saying? I agree, but I think though that the bit that interests me is the kind of integration of it, because I think if a young person, let's say, if it's on its second level, let's say, or primary, I think that if it's a standalone computer science, I think that is very useful. But I think if we don't integrate it with the other elements of what, let's say, making an app is, because it is about design, it is about creativity, it is about working with sound. The computer science is very important, but if we can find a way, I think, to integrate it with the others from that early age, I think it's not. I think people think that it's boring, and for some people it is, and that's fine. For some people it isn't, but they can see it as a whole thing instead of this one standalone. I just think we'll be a lot more successful, and that's what I'm kind of interested in doing.
No, and I actually agree with you. Like, by calling it out as a standalone subject, I would mean that it would be a subject where the curriculum or the content would be flexible enough that you could apply projects and show how it can be used across a spectrum of subject areas and integrated.
I think just on the point of integration, that's front and centre in the digital strategy, but it's also, they speak quite openly that it's not a very well-defined area, and I think the digital strategy has some very interesting things in it, and maybe it's a little bit vague in parts, but perhaps you have to be vague a little bit in this area to figure it out. But I think what's really shows the challenge is if you compare it to the schools IT 2000, and we've got basically 2 policy documents in 20 years, and some of the stuff does overlap, and one of those areas is integration. So in 1997 we were talking about technology integration, and last year we have our new policy document where we're still trying